Hey guys, welcome to my channel, and in today's video we're going to be talking about how to link CloudFront to S3 bucket. So the first thing is for you to first of all get an AWS account. You log in and always be conscious of which region you are operating in. So the region depends on the proximity of your customers or of your application to your customers. Then and the pricing also varies with the region. So for me, I pick Europe, Ireland, and we just go straight to CloudFront. So you can come here in the search bar and you search for CloudFront. CloudFront is actually AWS CDN, Content Delivery Network System. So with it, you can cache static files at edge locations. So AWS have a lot of edge locations. The advantage of using CDN is number one, it makes your content get to your customers faster when they want it. Then number two, it saves you ingress cost. Now, if you don't use a CDN, if you don't use CloudFront, let's say you are using S3 or you are using a VM, when your customers or your application users request for resources from your application, the request will have to go through AWS network to get to the VM or S3 bucket, then route back. So that distance can save you ingress cost. Ingress means actually data transfer. So, but with CloudFront, the communication does not need to go inside AWS internal network. It just stops at the edge location, and from there the CDN can save the response back to your application user. As you can see, I already have some CDN set up, so I'll create a new distribution. So you give this distribution a name, so I'll keep this sender. I want a static website. Then you can customize it, your domain, but you can always do that later. It's not compulsory, you must do it immediately. So I'll click next. Now you can connect CloudFront to an elastic load balancer and API gateway depending on what you want to cache. So for me, it's an S3 bucket. So I'll browse the S3. Remember, we previously created an S3 bucket. So over here you can see I have this page one. I can click here and I can see sender. I choose sender. So when you do the AWS will automatically configure the S3 bucket policy for you. You don't need to do that. So you can just leave the settings the way they are, then you go next. So web application firewalls, like it implies, is to enable security, so you can protect your application against DDoS attack and a couple of other things. So and it costs $14 for 10 million requests per month. So well, I think it has a base amount. So for now you can just go with do not enable security protection. But for enterprise applications, it's pertinent that you enable security protection. So I click next. Then after that, I click create distribution. After a couple of seconds or minutes, your distribution will be created. So as you can see, it's telling me distribution created successfully. Now, but even though it is created, it has not been deployed. So for you to know that it is deployed, a date will show here. So this is the distribution URL. If I click it and try to access it, I won't get anything. So because the distribution has not been deployed, it has been created but has not been deployed. So you just need to be patient and just refresh to get the up-to-date status. While we wait for it to be deployed, please take note, for every change you make in CloudFront, on saving, it will need to be redeployed. It's important to make sure that the last modified is showing a date before you try to access the URL. But while we are waiting, when it is done, you can access the files, the S3 files, with their names. So what I mean with their names is, which means if I want to access an index.html file, I will need to explicitly put the URL and add index.html inside it. If you just want to serve images files, then your job is done. But for a static website where you want to handle routing errors and the likes, 404 errors and the likes, you will need to do more than just deploy your basic CloudFront. The next thing we're going to set is the behavior. But before we do that, let's configure this. So you see, default root object is nothing. Like I said, if it is files, like things like images, videos, you are good to go. But for website, we will need to set this to, we want this to be index.html. We have actually not set a domain to it. So by default, CloudFront comes with its own default domain, but you can actually assign it to your custom domain, like, or a domain that you bought from a registrar like GoDaddy and like, you can assign it. So if you say I've already configured some domains, I already have some certificates. In a later video, we're going to talk about Amazon Certificate Manager. So for this, I will just choose this certificate. And remember, previously I didn't set a domain, so we just assign this certificate and we click save. So it will re-initialize the deployment process again. Then also we have added the certificate, so we should add a domain. So you can add a domain. So I will say sender. It's a subdomain. So you select the certificate. So after you adding the domain, you select the certificate, or you can create new one. Yeah. Then click next. Then next, and a domain is added. So we have set the domain. Then we have configured SSL. Then the default route and the like. So now, like I said previously, if you are still doing images, videos, PDF, those files, you still need to set the domain. So domain is like an alternative domain. So what this thing means is that instead of you accessing it with these URLs, you can actually access it with these URLs. So then the next thing you're going to configure is the behavior for your website. We want a situation whereby every, like in typical React application, every route should route back to index.html. So there's already a default behavior like that, but it needs a little adjustment. So we click it. We can use this one that specify all patterns. You see, asterisk means all. Then we can click it. So we want all requests to go to index.html. The default setting is okay. The only thing you need to do is to add a CloudFront function. So it is the CloudFront function that will route all requests back to index.html. So I already created the CloudFront functions. I have two, but let me show you how the CloudFront function looks like. So over here, over the under CloudFront in the side menu, you can go to functions. So you see I have two functions, one for typical React. So these are just the name, you can give it a name, and one is for Next.js. Let me click the React since we are dealing with React application. This is a simple code that you put to your CloudFront function. Whenever you do this, whenever you make changes, you click Save Changes, and you can go to Publish. So you see it automatically detected an unpublished change. You can click it and you can publish the function. So I didn't really add much changes. Please take note, for every change you make, the deployment process needs to be re-triggered. You need to publish the function for your CloudFront to be able to make use of the publish function. You can also test the function here and more like simulate requests to the function and see how it behaves. So you can make a GET request to it, the path, and see what will happen. So let me just do a simple test. So you see the result. You won't really see what the file. What you will just see is more like a result of the redirection, kind of. So this is just like a simple test. Let me explain the code. So what this code does is whenever I see a URL that is not a request to an image file, a PDF file, a video file, more like a request to a page, that's what this condition means. It should return the index.html. What you saw here is we typically made a get request. We can put any path here and it will still give us index.html. And we can basically say test and so you see index.html will still be resolved and index.html will be shown. That's what this code means, which is whenever any request that is not an image file, a video file, a PDF file, and similar, whenever the request is to a page, then index.html should be turned. So we come here and we select the CloudFront function, then we click save. So like I said previously, the deployment process will be re-triggered. Now, lastly, even though we set that, we still need to set an error page. Very important to set an error page, because sometimes when you don't set an error page and a request is made to a file that is not available, you might not get a good response. So I will say 404. I want a custom error. I want a custom response, and I want it to go to the default file, and I want the response to also be 200. I click OK. It's still deploying. So since we keep making changes to it, the deployment process is being re-triggered. Now, one more thing, is you can also activate login. You can do that. Thing we need to know is invalidation. So let's assume that you have a file abc.jpy png, and you replace that file. So CloudFront might still be serving the old file instead of the new content that is abc.png. So you need to invalidate the CloudFront. So you can invalidate a particular file, or you can invalidate all content. To do that, you simply create an invalidation. You can specify the file path and you click create invalidation. When it is successful, CloudFront will automatically fetch all new content from the S3 bucket and save it in the edge location. It's still deploying. As you can see, the last modified data changed to an actual time, and which means our deployment is done. So we can come here and reload. We'll see our S3 bucket website. Now let's check if our alternative domain is working. So as you can see, the alternative domain is not working. I have actually verified the root domain. So in this case, the root domain is siteinn.com. It's already verified, so we can route this domain to CloudFront since AWS has guaranteed that I'm the owner of this domain. Now please take note, this domain is not currently on AWS DNS, which is Route 53. AWS has already verified that I own this domain. If I click Route domain to CloudFront, it would not automatically resolve the CloudFront DNS. AWS will tell you to create a record or quadruple a record for with these credentials, but the truth is some DNS providers, most notably Namecheap, don't allow a record with this kind of value. So your a record must be an IP address. So what you can do is, instead of an a record or quadruple a record, you can use a CNAME. You can use a CNAME record. Now CNAME is used for subdomain like this, sender.siteinn.com. But if you are using a root domain, you should use an alias. So you can go to your DNS provider, use CNAME for subdomain, then use alias for root domain. That is, if your DNS provider does not allow this kind of URL, does not allow non-IP address for a record. When you configure your CNAME or alias in your DNS provider, it's going to take a while. So don't be in a hurry, don't panic that, oh, it has no result. It's going to take a while, an hour, 2 hours, or you can just give it a day for it to resolve around the world, and you can check again and it will be resolved.